Hello, everybody. Can you hear me well and see my screen, Denise?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Anastasia O'Rourke. I'm here in New Haven, Connecticut in the United States. What I'd like to do is give you an overview of what is happening in the voluntary carbon market in relation to cooling and life cycle refrigerant management. So there's lots of activity, and there has been for quite some time. So I think it was an excellent overview of all the different financing needs. And as Ali explained, this is one, voluntary carbon markets are one of several options that can help build the infrastructure that we need for life cycle refrigerant management. But there's still a lot of things that it cannot finance and shouldn't. And also there's still some learning that we all need to do from some of these more complicated processes involving lots of different actors, as Makoto explained, who all would like to get paid for their work, which is normal and a good thing. Okay, so just briefly, I'm Anastasia. Apart from being Senior Managing Director at the Carbon Containment Lab, I also teach at Yale University and have a lot of fun working on climate solutions and getting them going and getting market actors sort of taking them seriously and putting money into this field. So briefly, the Carbon Containment Lab, we are a nonprofit as well, and we're based here in the US. And we're looking at all sorts of different climate solutions and how we can help to overcome some of their barriers to adoption and help them to scale up. So in this space of LRM and cooling, some of the areas we've worked on include solving some of the data gaps and providing decision-ready intelligence to people who want to make decisions about this field. And so we've been doing several reports and tracking down where are things like destruction facilities or what do we need to know about the cost structures, etc. So that's on the data side. We've also been working variously on building trust in some of these market-based solutions. So some of our work here has been educating different buyers of carbon credits, thinking about what methodologies or standards do we need in this system, how to sort of evaluate quality and so on. And one of the things we worked on was a draft methodology for HFC destruction in developing countries or Article 5 countries. So that was hard, I will say. It's not easy writing these things. And then thirdly, we really try to enable innovation one way or the other. We've done some research and development on new technologies. We're really interested in things like alternative cooling technologies that don't even use gas. So we want to keep an eye on the future. And I just provided a snapshot of some of our work in this field, and we've had a lot of fun with CCAC and Makoto and his team and Cascade and putting on events and bringing people together as well. Okay, so that's the background. And now I just want to recap a little bit on where voluntary carbon markets fit in relation to the Montreal Protocol, because oftentimes people first think that, oh, this is already like Montreal Protocol is a really established and really effective way of dealing with both ozone depleting substances and now under the Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol, HFCs as well. But just to remind everyone that it's really focused on reducing the production of the gases and doesn't really deal with end of life. So for all of those gases, either ODS or HFCs that are still in circulation, they're in equipment, they're in stockpiles, they're sitting around, we still have a problem of what to do with them at end of life or stopping them from being vented or leaking as they're in use. And that's really the field and the domain of life cycle refrigerant management. And so this is in this installed bank of these gases is where we're seeing the most activity in carbon credits, and that there's just a reminder that there's a lot of emissions stored up and will be released unless we take action. So let's now shift our view to what voluntary carbon markets are doing. So as Ali explained, there's more than one financing mechanism, including extended producer responsibility and all sorts of blended finance, meaning grants and government and private sector financing options. as well as emerging systems under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. What I'm just going to focus now on is just the voluntary carbon market, which, as Makoto explained to you, is really this idea of private companies or organizations paying someone else to do the emissions reductions and making sure that that is verified, and then they count it against their climate goals. So within the voluntary carbon markets, in the cooling sector, broadly speaking, we have about 6 different groups of approaches or to cooling and emissions reduction. So on the left, you can see we have destroying ozone depleting substances. We also now have destroying HFCs as a pathway. There's some projects and methodologies on detecting and stopping leaks of refrigerants while those gases are in use in equipment. We have advanced refrigerants, so replacing refrigerants with much more lower GWP or zero GWP options. We're also replacing HFCs that are used in foam production. So it's not only in air conditioners, but in foam blowing agents and using much more low DWP or lower climate impact blowing agents for foam. And then finally, for the circular economy, we have HFC reclamation projects. So this is where we want to take those gases and reprocess them, make them as new, and then use them in equipment. And that is a lower impact use than using new gases. And so you can generate carbon credits from that. So we've done a study at the Carbon Containment Lab looking at, well, what's the status of all of these credits, who's issuing them, how many are them, when. And to do that, we looked at various different databases and pulled them in. And I linked here, put a link here to the report that you're welcome to take a look at on our website, where all of these graphics are included. And I believe our slides will be available as well. All right, so as I mentioned, we have these different approaches. And as of the end of 2025, there are 12 published methodologies for carbon credits in this field of cooling, and the methodologies are the key standard that you can think of that sort of govern the credits being issued. And this is just in the voluntary carbon market. So between all of these 12, since, if we go back from like 1996 to 2025, about 92 million tons in CO2 equivalent of credits have been issued. And you can see here by year when these have been issued and by the type. And so you can see there is a couple of projects in the late 2009, 2010, 2011 period. Not much happened after that in this field for quite a while, until 2020, where we started to see quite a rapid pickup. And I'd like to just talk about that 2010 number for a minute. So there was a standard that was under the Clean Development Mechanism, actually, that was trying to destroy HFC 23. And unfortunately, some of those projects were found to be problematic, highly problematic, and were later cancelled. And part of the reason was that actually some companies were found to be issuing credits and basically making that gas in order to destroy it, which was not the intention at all. So that was cut off quickly. But that history did actually have a kind of, pardon the pun, but it had a cooling effect on all of these projects in this category for some time, because there's quite some scandal associated with that, unfortunately. But you can see this new generation of projects, dealing with that, not talking about HFC 23 anymore, and are looking at a range of other LRM-related opportunities for doing good projects. So we do see sort of 3 clear phases of growth here. And, we have this sort of early period, then we have not a lot happening. And then post 2020, we have, quite a structural break and a shift away from legacy projects towards sort of more transformational industry activities. And quite a big category, which most people don't talk about, is this foam production and replacement of those gases. Those are projects that are issuing quite a lot of credits, actually. And to date, the US is the country that's hosting the most of these projects. And you can see again that a lot of these are in the foam category, interestingly. Now, when you issue a credit is one thing, but then when the buyer takes it and then retires it, meaning it takes it off the market, no one else can use that anymore, and they use it against their goal, that's called a retirement. And so it's also interesting to look at like how many have been issued, but how many have been retired. And you can see here that, big volumes across all of the categories have been retired, but there's still quite a number of these credits that haven't yet been retired. This means that people have bought them and they're holding them, or, perhaps someone has them as a tradable thing that they may, they bought a lower price and they might want to sell at a higher price, but it means that there are actually a number of credits in this category that are still available to buyers today. But this is changing. This data is a snapshot in time, and it's obviously changing all the time. There have been more and more HFC projects, and we think that this is, reflective of what the gases are that are in circulation now, and we see even more HFC projects coming in the future. So just to look forward a little bit, and I'll start to wrap up in the interest of time, there have been some really interesting methodological work that's just happened in the last 6 months and not reflected in the data that I just shared. So there's been 4 new methodologies in this field that it's important to know about. There's the 3 registries here, Open, Carbon Protocol, Vera, and Isometric, have all put out new either draft or final methodologies, and credits will start to come through these systems in the near, shortly. So one is on destroying HFCs from US household appliances. Another one is destroying HFCs in Article 5 countries. That's the one we worked on originally. Vera has put out an updated standard and added HFCs to that. And then Isometric has also done, just released a new protocol that includes both HFCs and ODS recovery and destruction, and there's different modules within that. So things to keep an eye out for. And these are sort of the next generation of methodologies, and we expect even more to come, actually, because there's a lot of activities that still have no methodology that could potentially fit. So we expect more growth in this category of carbon credits. We see a lot more buyers interested in this area, buyers of carbon credits from the corporate sector. I think there's still the need to build up a base of really stable and well-financed project developers, especially in Article 5 or in developing countries. There's certainly plenty of gas out there, and because it's highly potent greenhouse gases, one small tank can be worth a lot of carbon credits, but as Ali was saying, we really need to think systems here. We need to make sure there's appropriate guardrails, that we don't fall into any, fraudulent activities or traps here. And we need to kind of test out some of these methodologies in the real world as well. So one final thing I wanted to let you know about, Denise asked me to include something here. We have been partnering with a group called the Beyond Alliance, which is a group of businesses on what's called the Super Pollutant Action Initiative. And this is a corporate commitment by several leading companies to put more than $100 million into super pollutant mitigation projects by 2030. And then in addition, the Beyond Alliance is working on a few other areas. This is really geared towards buyers of credits, as well as sort of large corporate actors. So we have a roadmap, there's an academy, there's a particular project on refrigerants in scope 3 or in value chains of companies. And all of this material, you can read more about at the website here. The roadmap in particular is something that I'm leading for the Carbon Containment Lab, and we are releasing this roadmap at New York Climate Week. We're looking at what are the possibilities for companies to do a lot more in super pollutants. So refrigerants are one of several super pollutants. And CCAC has been great at building up everyone's awareness of what are these super pollutants. So this is sort of the corporate aspect of that. So we're trying to get more companies more interested in this through what can they do in their own operations, in their value chains, what they can do through the voluntary carbon markets, and what they can do in the policy sphere as well. So that's something we're actively working on, and we'll be releasing it in September of this year. And that will be a public resource for any and all companies and anyone who's interested, policymakers too. So with that, Denise, I'd like to hand it back to you, and happy to take questions and have a little discussion here as well. Thank you.